This is great. It was my first time seeing it. How did it feel to screen it finally?
I just want to say that it's been beautiful to screen all of them. They all were intended to be screened on a big screen. So like Lady Dane's and Ngozi's, like they were all supposed to have a big life like this. So like to see the cultivation of all of it actually made me like appreciate my job a lot more. Because like I get to work with some really phenomenal artists. Like they inspired the creation of the actual film. Their commitment, their dedication to creating like liberation for themselves. Like it's so apropos that Lady Dane's piece would be the piece that we screen today of all days. So apropos that like Lavender Freddy's piece would also be screened about letter to the future and an affirmation around it. And also so powerful to see Ngozi's like, are you breathing? Like, are we breathing okay? And then to like kind of like have my piece then be a part of that. It's like a little humble pie. Like it's actually humility because like I actually get to work with artists I really admire, and I get to see, and tonight I got to see my work in concert with the people that I admire.
I love it. Boom.
I also will no one needs to brag about Jonathan because this room would be the choir. But Jonathan joined NBT's family 10 years ago, and it was an impossible task that we invited him into, and I don't know why he said yes. But when he said yes, he said, I will say yes on one condition. There might have been more than one. But he said, I'm an artist, and I'm an artist first. And if this space can create room for me not only to be, at the time the title was Director of Theater Arts, but also an artist, I can say yes to this. And I could meet you at that space of artistry. But like we're running an institution, y'all, as all y'all know. And every season I would go to Jonathan and say, Jonathan, do you want to direct something in the season? And 9 times out of 10, Jonathan would say, absolutely not. He was like, because I am humbled by being a steward of Black artists. And if I say yes, then I'm taking a spot from somebody else. And so here's a man who has never wanted to center himself within the organization as an artist because that's one less commission, one less opportunity that we wouldn't give someone else. So this is like a culminating moment in such a beautiful way because we have finally found a way to dance to center his brilliance as an artist and as the executive artistic director of the National Black Theater. So I'm so humbled that you would say yes to us dancing in this way, and the film is beautiful.
Jonathan, how did you find the stories? There's so many stories. It was like there were just a lot of stories. How did you find those stories? What was it like curating all those stories?
So big shout out to the Schomburg and Dr. Michelle Commander and Novella. So how this all came to be. Carnegie Hall does this yearly or citywide festival we might all know about. 1 year, many moons ago, people might remember that it was the Great Migration that they were looking at. They were looking at how does the Great Migration look like and what is it? How does it configure? National Black Theater had actually partnered with them multiple times to basically do a look at historical texts and actually unearth them through contemporary lenses. And we called them micro-commissions. And in that year, we were like, oh yeah, sure, we'll do the Great Migration. That's like a no-brainer. Like, National Black Theater can do something about the Great Migration. We go to the Schomburg because we had built a partnership with the Schomburg of awakening their archives. What does it mean to give contemporary Black artists opportunity to look at research material and create something brand new with it? And a part of that, conversation was like talking to Dr. Commander. And we were like, oh, we're going to do something on the Great Migration. We're so excited to do that. And she said, well, you can't actually just start with the Great Migration. The Black body's been in perpetual flight since it was ripped from Africa. So if you're going to talk about...
Mic drop.
So if you're going to talk about migration, you have to start there.
Got it.
And you have to actually begin the conversation from the moment of slavery. So I was like, oh, that totally like shifted our whole... Like, okay, we got to go from the drawing board and we had to start rethinking the buckets of timeline that we're actually going to be asking these commissioned artists to do and respond to. So Sade and I first said, we'll take on basically from the transatlantic slave trade all the way up to Reconstruction. And we'll self-commission ourselves. We'll self-commission ourselves to respond to that time period. And I was up late at night, like 2 a.m., and I was like, what the heck am I gonna do? I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna create. I don't know why I said yes. I feel so good to all the artists who say yes to me and they actually create something, because I was about to be like, Sade, I think we were wrong in giving ourselves a commission. And then one day, one late at night, as Spirit does, it said, look at this auction block notice. And then the seedling started happening. Look at this auction block notice, and then look at these fugitive notices. And then look at these find your family notices. You don't have to write anything, you just gotta put it together. Yep. And so then it became, then it became a quest of how do I navigate the volume of data? And I've been playing with this concept of polyphony and cacophony, and this notion of also like when we go to a club, or if you did go to a club, or when you did go to a club, your whole body, you create intimacy by choice of what you want to hear, right? There's intimacy that's created while there's all this other things happen. Life it has polyphony and cacophony. Sometimes we go to see theater or a film, it monetizes it to be a mono sound. So we have a narrow of non-natural viewing that we're actually witnessing. So I've been in a place of trying to figure out how to capture that polyphony and that cacophony of the natural world and put it in an artistic form so that we digest it. So then I just said, let's work with an ensemble of gorgeous actors.
Some are here.
Right? Okay. Whoop, whoop, Denise.
Nice.
And let's play. So we went inside the Temple of Liberation, and they trusted me to basically read and basically embody over 400 years of history. And that's really what you're hearing is the culmination of that experiment. And then James King, who at All Arts invited me to be an artist in residence. And he said, I want you to create a film. I said, I don't create films. And he said, no, but I've seen you take care of so many artists. I want to take care of you. And so he created space for me to think of myself as a filmmaker. And I threw this concept at him. He said, I want you to do that. And I said, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to respond to that. Talk to Sade. Sade, who I consider to be my doula in this process. I like to call myself a creative doula. She was my doula in this process. I had a conversation, and it started to really lean into your family when you have moments, like lean into your family. So Thomas, who was our cinematographer and editor, her husband, it basically said yes to like bringing his documentary and film brilliance to making this happen. Ricky Tripp, who's like a brother of mine, I was just like, hey, I'm doing this thing. I feel very vulnerable. I don't know what I'm doing. Do you think you might be interested? And he said yes. And I was like,
he absolutely knew what he was doing.
And then Chai, who is here, Chai and Joy, yes, the composers. I've been working with Chai on multiple projects digitally, and then I was just like, Chai, do you compose, like, do you do operatic kind of things? I have this like sonic opera. I don't know actually what I'm like. Can you do something with this? I always wanted to be composed underneath. And Chai just magically said yes and leaned into the curiosity of that. And then that brought Lawanda, and then Belinda, who got us our, okay, so the location, I will stop. But the location that we have and the production manager, but the location, the reason why we have that spot is because Belinda. I was talking to Belinda, yes. But I was actually in the process of like, I was gonna go to 3 different locations where black bodies have either been lynched or there's blood in the soil, and Belinda was like, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. And she said, there's this location that's timeless. There's a location that is beautiful. I think you should go there, Fort Tryon Park. Went there, thanks to Belinda, and then Deshaun right there, costumes. I just want to shout out people real quick. Who did all the looks and costumes. I mean, and all, I would say, how did this all come
and Lawanda, the dancer.
Yes, Lawanda.
The movement artist.
Is Lawanda here?
Yes, Lawanda!
Oh, okay.
Woo!
Okay.
And what I just want to say, and why I'm just getting like a little, like a whatever, is because in all ways of saying yes to this project and saying yes to doing this project, there was an opportunity to let God have a love note to me. All these people never had worked with me before. And all these people said yes because they needed a healing too, and they needed to have a conversation. We all equally got to have a healing conversation together and really begin to awaken our God force, our love force, our power within, and that's the culmination of it.
Boom. Okay. 2 more questions. We'll take a couple questions from the audience. The first is, there's a conversation about maybe we're beyond the enslaved narrative, right? Like, this is a moment where we should be telling different stories. And then there's a counter argument to that I think is also powerful. But I'd love to know from both of you, like, why this story in this moment?
So in putting together the evening, y'all, there's just so much. In putting together the evening, it's one of the reasons why we wanted to do such different work. Because if you listen to Dr. Tier's words in Letter to the Future, she envisions, this Afrofuture world that's past our oppression, even dare go so far to take responsibility for our oppression so that we can take responsibility and agency around our liberation, right? And so all the stories become important as a quilt of our authentic lived experience. And I think that the thing also that's happening in the film, that happened in the original commissions that we did at the Schomburg like 5 years ago, What is Time, is Jonathan and I are acutely interested in the technologies that are indigenous to Black folk. And so what we're seeing, even though it may appear as a story around slavery, what we're leaning into is our indigenous technology of call and response, and saying that these are call and responses, and that embedded in us taking back our agency around making things very Blackly, that we can contextualize this story so that it is a love note, as opposed to, and a reminder, because not one word was written. That is all archival text from the Schomburg. And so when we talk about progress, we can't heal or move forward if there isn't a reckoning, and it can't be through the lens of how folks are telling us we should see ourselves. We have to reclaim that, take up space, and constantly at every goalpost define what liberation feels like for us. So for Lawanda to be every chapter of the migration, she was channeling. Like, Ricky's an amazing choreographer. Obviously, Jonathan's the GOAT, but like, that was a love letter. That was leaning into this wildest dreams of our ancestors. And we really believe that if we bring them into the room, we're never alone. If we bring them into the room, that's our army. And so this story is less about the circumstance of chattel slavery as much as it is creating a template and a model for the world to see that we have agency in the way we love and claim ourselves and our liberation. So I think that's why for MBT, because we were not supposed to be a part of the picture, he is artist in resident at All Arts, but it made sense that we could invest in this brilliant and beautiful artist so that his full world could come to life with more resources, in order to be able to tell multiple stories that are ours, not how folks say they are to be. If that makes any sense.
Boom.
I mean, yes. Yes, boom. I would only, the only bit I want to add and uplift is that for me, part of the love note culminates in actually the search, and this kind of idea of what does reclamation look like. And when I actually think of this whole evening of how all the works, there's a conversation around what does it mean to have a reclamation that's outside of oppression, that actually visions yourself into the future. But when you listen to those words written by Black folks, published in newspapers, they are not diminishing anyone. They're just saying, can you help me find my loved one? can you just help me find this person that I love that I miss? And if we think about what family structure means to folks, that to have that energy of reclamation categorized and actually articulated through the lived voices of folks, where they are not saying my white slave or this person beat me or da-da-da. They're actually utilizing their space to say, I love my family so much, can you help me just find them? And there's so many of those out there, and for me, that is the reclamation for when you think about this time period.
And I want to say in that there is humanity, right? And not to like take it away from the film, but like what is happening in Russia and the Ukraine and the refugee crisis that's happening. I desire to know the whereabouts. We find ourselves in each other in the stories that we tell. And when they're rooted in that humanity, it gives birth to all of our humanity in a real and prescient way. And so, for me, the film's not about slavery.
You know, it's so interesting. There's so few first-person accounts from that moment. Yeah. That's what struck me so much. It was like there were so many first-person accounts in this. I was like, why haven't I seen this before? And you know, in the organizing role, we talk about the act of remembrance is not only recall, but a putting back together. And what does it mean to put these stories back together in this way? Last question I'll ask is about the letter from Dr. Tier. Had you known that letter before? Did you like stumble upon it? What was the story of this letter coming? I ask because, you know, what was so cool was seeing all the old footage. And in the organizing role, we always talk about, and it's great that you brought up call and response, this idea that Black is interactive, that is like a defining feature of Blackness, that the back and forth is actually what makes us so powerful. But how did this come up?
Oh, tell me my friend's name.
Lavender Freddy?
No. From Crossroads.
Marshall.
Yes. So Marshall.
Y'all are adorable, by the way. What's my friend name again? Okay.
It's so sad we share a brain and so many other things. Marshall at Crossroads Theater in New Jersey emailed me when he was working. They were renovating Crossroads, and he was also working with the Smithsonian Museum for African American Culture and Heritage and all the things, the longest acronym. And he said, Sade, I think like we're looking at some of your mom's archive to put into the museum, and we actually fell upon this time capsule, and it's many Black, really like fundamental Black theater founders put different items into this time capsule, and my mother's happened to be this letter to the future. And so it was a shock to us. I think we found it like 2 years ago, and she wrote it in the early 90s maybe, or the late 80s. And, you know, if I'm gonna be on a soapbox, which, I mean, I'm always on the soapbox, but like I just really, it's an invitation to each of you to look at yourselves as archivists of your own life and your own world. A letter that like, you know, was forgotten has literally become MBT's blueprint as we build this new building and transform the corner of 125th and 5th. Like this document, all of our architects and interior designers have as we think about what this space should represent and should feel like, and turning that letter into the future into built space that allows us to dream into the, like, to be our own time capsule as we dream this Afro-future dream. And so it becomes like this roadmap of this blueprint. And so as a result, this building that we're building is like, we don't talk about it in terms of like a capital redevelopment project, though we have a capital redevelopment project. We're raising $65 million. If anybody got a penny, a thing, a dollar, $10 million. But it is, we only talk about it as a love letter to the future. And so we are mapping in this built space because that's what our jobs are, right? Every generation's job is to be innovative, to stand on the shoulders of and to innovate forward. And so we are using the letter as the shoulders that we stand on and turning it into built space, which is really exciting. And I'm so grateful to Marshall for reaching out and sharing it with us.
Boom. 2 questions from the audience. Anybody got a question?
I have a question. I'm looking at about.
There's a balcony.
Balcony.
It's so dramatic. I love theater.
This is where we've sat historically, so I figured it'd be a good place to sit.
You're such an archivist, James.
First of all, thank you, Jonathan. I love you, Sade. I love you. Thank you, Paul. You said something, Sade, that was really interesting to me. You said none of it was written down. Was that intentional, knowing what our history is?
Of course. Yeah. You know, a part of the job that we have, my mother used to call it decrudding. And I think in the organizing world, folks talk about dismantling. Dismantling the notion of value. And what's valued is what's written on the page from a Western capitalistic point of view. And we lose so much of our own technology by not honoring how we survived this crazy, crazy experiment of the Middle Passage to this day and age. And so for us, Black folks, the oral history, the call and the response is our alchemy. And there's a reason why we were displaced, and there was a reason why we couldn't tell our stories, because they were so powerful. The privilege of this job is that we get to create opportunities for storytellers, and we ourselves are a story being told, and that we want to add, like, that is our cowrie shells. They are our currency, is our stories, and so we're reclaiming the oral nature of it and transforming that to have like a great space of power and agency, and most importantly, transformation.
How do you run around this theater, Sade?
Run around the bar. And I know there's another question, perhaps. I just want everyone to know that there's like a small open bar where we can also, after this, continue to have conversations. So I hope you do stick around past this question and join us for a toast.
One more. The lights are really bright, so we can't really see your hands. So if you have a question, you can just ask it. Anybody?
All has been answered.
Awesome.
Before we close, I just do want to say this digital medium is something that NBT is really excited about. We're really also excited to place the playwright and the dancer and the writer in spaces of discomfort to try new things. It would be great to get your feedback of how it went. If you could, send us an email or whatever. Our season brochure, where you can see more of our work this season, is outside, so please do take one. And as much as we're in love with this digital media, we also want to invite you to, I would say, an onslaught of live performance. There's a lot of great work to see coming up that the National Black Theater is producing, curating. Jonathan is directing more things. So just like very quickly, if you're around May 7th, Jonathan is directing the live version of this to some extent, the Ring Shout, the Gathering, a sonic ring shout. We're doing, MBT is co-curating that with the Apollo and the American Composers Orchestra, followed by, and I know Saheem, if he's still in the house, yay! We are super proud of a partnership that we have with the Public Theater. Saheem Ali, the brilliant director and Associate Artistic Director of the Public, has joined forces with MBT yet again. It's like another one. I feel like DJ Khaled. We have re-partnered with each other to produce James Imes' Fat Ham. It is a Black, queer, Southern take on Hamlet called Fat Ham. And then followed by, and we have Aaron in the audience, another dear partner at New York Theater Workshop, culminating our live performance season. Actually, no. Live performance is Dreaming Zenzile at New York Theater Workshop. It's another beautiful musical by Somi, written about the life and legacy of Miriam Makeba.
And directed by Liliana Blaine Cruz.
And directed, of course, by Liliana Blaine Cruz. And then lastly, Tavia's in the audience. He is our, a new addition to the family, but an old partner with National Black Theater is the Park Avenue Armory, and so we're partnering with Park Avenue Armory to help celebrate the incredible programming Tavia has curated for Juneteenth. So we love the digital media, and we want to do more of it, but we also know that y'all know us as theater, and we have lots of that on the horizon, so please do join us.
As we close, can you both give us some advice to the artist? One piece of advice to the artist, and that'll be our goodbye.
My one piece of advice to any artist is that discomfort is where innovation can lie. So if you don't know discomfort, you're not allowing yourself to evolve, and that the heart wants to pull. This is a larger bit of the advice, but through that discomfort and finding the space of innovation, your heart starts to pulse, and through that pulsing heart, courage shows up. And if we are creating works through courage, we are actually creating works that can heal, and we are creating works that actually allow for other hearts to be liberated. So I would say allow for discomfort to be your best friend as you're on the quest to understand how to pin your next note, your next song, next drawing, or just dance or do your next tendu or whatever that you might want to do as a physical expression.
Boom.
I love that. I love that. Dr. Tier used to always say, have a love affair with discomfort. I was like, who want to do, okay. My advice, it's kind of provincial, but it's home does exist. Search it out, find it. If you are artist practicing and you do not feel like you have a home, that is information. And NBT seeks to be Black culture's home away from home. Jonathan is pushing us in very innovative ways to be multidisciplinary. I was like, we are a theater. He was like, no, we are not. And I'm like, I guess we're not. But I think specifically for all artists, but specifically for Black artists, having a home is important. We get erased so often in rooms that they say are calibrated for us, but we don't feel safe or cared for in those rooms. And we cannot produce your best work, your highest vibrational work, if you do not have a place where your exhale feels the best. Home exists. We have a home. Even if an MBT is not your home, you all are welcome. Find that, because that will, water your roots in ways that the work sometimes does not.
Boom. Everybody, let's give it up for tonight.
Yay, thanks for coming.
And for Jonathan and Sade.
Yeah, and it's a big shout out to All Arts. I know they're in the building. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And shout out to all MBT staff. Thank you. Byron.